Hey guys, it's God Bars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 157th episode of my series where I grab vinyls from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So getting back to this legendary trio that I've already covered twice on the channel, today I wanted to discuss De La Soul's endlessly awesome fourth album, 1996's Stakes is High. While this was obviously nowhere near the group's last release, it actually was technically the final album that would include any input from Prince Paul, who was basically the crew's mentor as well as its de facto fourth member. He would split from Posdnuos, Trugoy the Dove, and Maceo toward the beginning stages of the creation of this LP, though I believe these were mainly just creative differences, and they've seemed to remain pretty amicable over the years. While accounts vary slightly on why Paul split from De La, depending on who in the crew you ask, it helped them branch out a bit from the zany energy and sense of humor that showed up so heavily on the debut, De La Soul is Dead, and its follow-up Balloon Mind State. But with Stakes is High, they brought in so much new, exciting, and promising energy, with newcomers like Mos Def or Yasin Bey being around for basically the entire process of creating and recording this thing, which Posdnuos said really pushed him and Dave to sharpen their lyrical swords and prove that their near decade-long tenure had resulted in their pens becoming more lethal, not less. Something interesting about this LP is the title actually preceded the creation of any of the actual music, which allowed them to craft 19 killer songs that all perfectly embody the weight on their shoulders at the time, especially with the classic title track and its legendary beat, which is arguably the best and most iconic horn sample from 90s hip hop period, outside of Pete Rock and CL Smooth's Troy or They Reminisce Over You. But the beat for the title track here is actually done by a young Jay Dilla who just went by JD at this time. And he had really only started to get the ball rolling on his career the year that this album came out, with other notable production placements on classic 1996 LPs like Beats, Rhymes, and Life by Tribe Called Quest and Lab Cabin California by The Pharcyde, which would help open the door for even more notable collaborations in the coming years, with contributions to classics like Common's Like Water for Chocolate, Busta Rhymes' When Disaster Strikes, Things Fall Apart by The Roots, and of course his time with Slum Village. Maceo said himself what makes the Stakes is High instrumental so amazing is it doesn't sound like a signature Dilla beat, and most people probably wouldn't even guess it was one, because he brilliantly manages to meet De La halfway by making an instrumental that fit perfectly for them, opposed to trying to make the trio bend to fit to his off-kilter style. Ironically, when I made the order for this set, I actually hadn't considered that my previous pick, Machiavelli, included the song Against All Odds, a diss and response of sorts to De La Soul's critiques of gangsta rap on here, which other affiliates of Pac, like Tretch of Naughty by Nature, also took offense to. While there will probably never be any serious, half-respectable list of top groups in the genre that doesn't have these guys in it, something that is unfortunately far less common is to see either of the absolute pioneer MCs of De La Soul in all-time top 50 rapper lists, which I think is solely because of how the narrative is painted. Their names are quirky and weird. They aren't the popular, safe choices you'll see people always grasp onto, like Pac or Biggie, and their music not being available digitally for so long due to the greed of lazy old money-stealing Tom Silverman, all contribute to their tendency to fly under the radar. Fortunately, it seems the praise and attention from the younger demographic has grown massively since they finally won that long, arduous battle against auditory slavery. I mean, when you really think about it, they were virtually blacklisted from being able to even attempt to appeal to the newer generation, considering a lack of a digital catalog in 2020 basically implies you have to buy a CD or vinyl, which obviously isn't really the most lucrative form of music distribution anymore, especially because it seems like all of their LPs, or at least most of them, were out of print for a while. That meant teens like me had to go to YouTube to listen to these projects initially, which wasn't going to pay them a dime, and then to cap it off, when they finally do get over this ridiculous hurdle and announce their entire discography is coming to streaming and getting physical re-releases, Dave tragically passes away. Of course, Dave will forever live on through the legacy that De La Soul built musically, and I want to share some of the lines off of Stakes is High by both Paz and Trugoy that have impacted me the most personally. While it's a bit of an obvious choice that I already gushed over for the JD instrumental, I once again have to bring up the title track, as both Posdnuos and Dave display what's without a doubt the best rapping they've done up until that point in their career, which they're doing all across this album. While I've occasionally heard the criticism that this LP is too long or a bit bloated, I completely disagree, as I think the amount of tracks perfectly reflect their state of mind at the time. And honestly, I think it's kind of an unreasonable complaint when you consider it's literally only 5 minutes longer than the debut, which I've never heard anyone say is too long. The two are snapping constantly on here, and I have to share both starting verses from each respective master of this craft, starting with Posdnuos, who opens the track with, "The instamatic focal point bringing damage to your burrow be some brothers from the east with them beats that be thorough. Got the solar gravitation, so I'm bound to pull it. I gets down like brothers are found, ducking from bullets. Gun control means using both hands in my land, where it's all about the cautious live-in. Migrated to a higher form of consequence, compliments of struggling that shouldn't be notable, man, every word I say should be a hip-hop quotable." And his second verse has some killer lines too, like, "Man, life can get all up in your ass, baby, you better work it out. Now let me tell you what it's all about. A skin not considered equal, a meteor has more right than my people, who be wasting time screaming who they've hated. That's why the native tongues have officially been reinstated." But when it comes to the most iconic verse on this entire album, it definitely has to go to Dave, with his legendary opening set of lines on this track, prolifically giving us gems like, "I'm sick of bitches shaking asses, I'm sick of talking about blunts, sick of Versace classes, sick of slang, sick of half-ass award shows, sick of name brand clothes, sick of R&B bitches over bullshit tracks, cocaine and crack, which brings sickness to blacks. Sick of swole-head rappers with their sickening raps, clappers of gats, making the whole sick world collapse. The facts are getting sicker, even sicker perhaps. I stick a bush to make a bundle to escape this synapse." One other Trugoy the Dove verse I've always loved comes from "It's So Easy," which definitely is my runner-up for Best Instrumental here at a close second place. With a killer vibe that Dave matches perfectly, rapping, "Fell in love with this fish who got caught in my mesh. Ayo, she burned my scene up like David Koresh. I guess a diamond ain't nothing but a rock with a name. I guess love ain't nothing but emotion and game. It's a lesson well learned, so praise is well due. I'm sending off from Big L to Kenny Calhoun." The final bar I have to shout out on this track comes from Posdnuos, where he gives a straight game with, "I own the deeds to some acres in the West Indies, where my pops is building residence to house my seed. Now here's the lead. Y'all dudes pray to hot rods and not God, while Versace play you bitches like Yahtzee." While I already mentioned Yasin Bey earlier, I negated to mention that he's one of the featured artists on here, as well as Common, Zayn, Truth Enola, and Jazzy Fat Nasties. When it comes to producers, besides Dilla and the members of the group themselves who worked on this thing, it also includes names like OG, Skef Anselm, and Spearhead X. For my top 3 favorite songs on this masterpiece, I would definitely have to choose the title track, "It's So Easy" or "Hot," and "Big Brother Beat." When it comes to honorable mentions that didn't quite make the cut for top 3, I still wanted to recommend a handful of dope songs like Super MCs, The Business, Why You Nonstop, Breaks, Long Island Degrees, Better Listen, Down Syndrome, For More, Dog Eat Dog, Didn't It, and Sunshine. Thank you for watching my 157th video. Next time, we're kind of ironically going over to the West Coast again to talk about the G-Funk scene, where the record I'm going to talk about is the exact type of thing I'm sure these guys weren't exactly over the moon with at the time. But luckily, there's enough room for everyone to coexist together in hip-hop, so tune in to see me discuss that overdue Compton legend. And if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite moments are off this highlight from De La Soul's extensive discography. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.
such a thing. Look. Look, I stand in the flame of a feeling we call pain. Father's Day mug, little hand shaped in clay. Carrier planes flew overhead in pockets.